Watching the Niners, Denver, it was ugly. I'm sorry, not every game can be a fireworks show. But I took a lot of positive out of it. So the headline in Denver today is Russell Wilson has one clutch drive and they narrowly escape. So let's just think about this. So Russell takes his act to Denver, all new team, all new everything. Nathaniel Hackett brings the Green Bay Aaron Rodgers offense to Denver. Now, we don't know if Hackett can coach. I'm concerned about some of his choices. But Russell Wilson, we saw it in game one, plays the good soldier. I'm going to be the Hall of Famer. I got the big contract. I'm going to be the good soldier. I'm going to be the good guy. And he kind of defers to him in week one. It did not work. But then in the fourth quarter, you watch it and you're like, Russell said, okay, I'm just going to go and use my superpower. I'm going to move around a lot. And he did, and it was a great drive. And the Niners defense, second only in my opinion to the Buffalo Bills in talent, were flummoxed. Because that's what Russell Wilson did before he came to Denver. He runs around. He makes things happen. He's great off script. He picks up yards. And he does need to move and improvise and scramble. That is his superpower. It'd be like Lamar Jackson saying, I'm never going to leave the pocket. Or Justin Herbert saying, I'm never going to throw a deep ball. But remember, it took Aaron a year to learn this offense. And we don't think Hackett's as good as Matt LaFleur. Do you remember Aaron Rodgers' first year with this offense? Do you know what he completed? 62% of his throws. Passer rating mid-90s. Touchdowns only 26. That's Aaron Rodgers in a bad division with a bunch of layup wins. It took Aaron Rodgers a year. Russell doesn't get it. Russell was changing operations, changing staff, changing teams, new city, new conference. And here comes Nathaniel Hackett. We don't know if he's a good teacher or not. We know he's a nice guy, and I think that's part of the problem. Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron Rodgers is like, oh, made me laugh. My darts buddy, great guy. And Russell Wilson wants to be a great guy. And last night in the fourth quarter, Russell Wilson said, yeah, enough with that. It's my offense. I'm taking it over, and did what he does. And that's what it should be. But I think it's harder than people think. Two new camps converge. They're both trying to make nice first impressions. Russell he got the big money. He doesn't want to be domineering and bulldoze everybody. And Hackett's a little over his head, and he's a little deferential, but it's his offense, and it worked with Aaron. And then Russell's thinking, well, I can show that I can be Aaron. I can sit in the pocket. Aaron wasn't great with his offense first year in a bad division. And so here's the good news for Denver. The Chargers are a mess. The Raiders are messier. Kansas City lost. And if you look at the schedule right now this morning, you're not going to face a defense that looks anything like the 49ers for the next 2 months. It's Las Vegas a couple of times. It's Carolina. It's Tennessee. It's the Jets. It's Jacksonville. That's the best defense you'll face. But I do think it's not as easy as just, hey, let's just Russell run your thing. I think Russell's sitting here struggling with how much of the offense do I use? How much of his offense do I defer to? But in the end, they're a 2-1 football team with a softer part of their schedule coming up. And Russell Wilson was optimistic afterwards. I know it was ugly. I know it was inartistic. But it's a win over probably the second best defensive personnel in the NFL. I know it's just too optimistic for you. But, you know, they always say you can lose games, you can't lose locker rooms. You don't lose a locker room with Russell Wilson. Yes, he's a little too optimistic. The glass is always half full. But right now, they're 2-1. Would you rather be Denver at 2-1 and choppy offensively, or the Chargers right now? Or the Raiders right now? I wouldn't. Take a deep breath. I'll defend Garoppolo after the break. So we know Buffalo's really good. I still contend this morning, I think Buffalo's the best team in the league. But there is a trend now. You can be a great company, and there can be a little bit of a disturbing trend. So what I'm about to tell you now covers more than a year. Since the start of last season, the Bills are now 0-6 in close games. Only the Texans are that bad. What? Isn't that weird, right? It would be almost like a fighter who has a bunch of first and second round knockouts, but anytime the fight goes 10 rounds, they can't win. Sounds like Tyson, which is what we compare Buffalo to. And it's really interesting about this. Buffalo's the better team than Miami. Baltimore was the better team than Miami, but Miami deserves credit for figuring out ways to win. But, I mean, Buffalo dominated time of possession. They had 3 times as many plays. They had over double the first downs. Buffalo's the better team than Miami. They are the better team. Buffalo had major cluster injuries in the secondary. Half their defensive line was gone. It's Miami. It's hot. When you play any team in Miami in September, you're facing the team and you're facing the conditions. But here's the thing that worries me. 6 years in with Buffalo and their excellent defensive coach, 6 years, they still haven't developed a run game. Sean McDermott developed a defensive line that's great, linebackers great, secondary that's great. He has leaned into and solved his side of the ball. And here's why it worries me. 6 years in, they still rely heavily on Josh Allen to pick up yards running the ball. Sort of like another defensive coach, Ron Rivera, did with Cam. And often Mike Tomlin did with Big Ben. Defensive coaches let those huge quarterbacks pick up yards, kind of run things. It doesn't last. It's why Cam fell over a cliff at 32, like literally aged overnight. It's why Ben aged overnight. And Josh Allen, this cannot last. You got 90 snaps. He attempts 68 passes and 8 rush attempts. It feels very much defensive coaches. By the way, Chicago defensive coach can't get the offense right. Chargers defensive coach, Chargers offense can't get right. Steelers defensive coach can't get the offense right. Bills defensive coach, 6 years in, can't develop a running game. I've been on this now, I know ad nauseum for years, and it's exhausting. But this is not going to last. I've seen it with Cam, and I've seen it with Big Ben. And I think Josh has some of the talents of both. He's a power runner like Cam. And he'll run guys over, and he's got the arm, the deep ball, like Big Ben. There's a lot of qualities here that they share. It doesn't last. And to these defensive coaches who love physicality and they love toughness, do you get the sensibility of protect your quarterback? I mean, 63 pass attempts, 8 carries for a northern team in that kind of sauna water with a roster that has major deficiencies due to injuries all over the defense. I thought Josh Allen was exhausted and a little sloppy at the end. Of course he is, because they rely so heavily on him for the offense. And by the way, I'm not saying Kansas City always has a great run game, but I never feel like with Kansas City it's all on Mahomes. I feel like there are Andy Reid's play design. They can at times run the ball effectively. Mahomes is the centerpiece of it, but I don't feel they just completely rely on Mahomes. I'm starting to feel this is Carolina with a defensive coach, where if Cam plays well, they win. If Cam doesn't, they lose. They sometimes play downhill like Carolina did with Cam, and they end up in a Super Bowl. But the consistency in close games with Cam, the inability sometimes to create offense outside of Cam. I mean, go to the last couple of years with Pittsburgh. They had no run game, bad offensive line. It was Big Ben trying to save the day offensively with another coordinator that doesn't work in Pittsburgh. So I can love what Buffalo's all about and think they're the best team in the league. But this is a trend now. Only the Houston Texans, since the start of last year, are as bad as Buffalo in close games. So that's not just random osmosis, coincidence. When you can't develop a consistent running game outside of Josh Allen, it's hard when you have a game and you want to ice it, and you go to the ground and Tom turns to Leonard Fournette and he eats 3.5 minutes off the clock and you lead by 8, and that's how the game ends. That is such a benefit for an Aaron Jones with Aaron Rodgers or a Leonard Fournette with a Tom Brady. That run game that ices games so you don't have to get into a shootout every week. Because Buffalo's great knocking out people in the first round, but some of these fights, they go 10 rounds. And you got to win those fights too to be the champ. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.